Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of my game development blog. And today what we're going to do is we're going to go on the first steps towards creating a selectable system for a paper doll. So I've already gone a few steps ahead of this. I'm not going to record as I keep trying and failing miserably. So what we're going to see here is we're going to take a look at a little bit of code and a bit of a system that I've built that's kind of the rudimentary basis for a paper doll system. If you haven't listened to my first webcast or video log, the purpose of what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to create a simple paper doll app for my 4-year-old, mainly because I'm fed up with the paper doll apps that are on Android with all the pop-ups and video ads and misleading links that lead to pages and so on. I just want to create a nice clean paper doll app for her, and it's an easy project to learn this new system on. So that's what we're working on. Now, as I said, I've already gone forward a bit here, and I'll explain what I've done. So, very first thing is let's bring up our Godot engine. So I've got this program set up called Paper One, which is basically a basic framework for my paper doll system. It's very simple right now. Basically, I've got 3 texture frames. I've got 3 texture frames set up. One as the head, one as the body, and the last one as legs. And then I've got 3 buttons for each one that represent in different colors that controls the color of each part. So basically how the paper doll works is it's layered images on top of each other, and you select let's say a new hairstyle, and it replaces that one specific layer. So for example, head is a layer, body's a layer, legs are a layer. In a real paper doll you'd have like 20, 30, maybe 10 different layers depending on how complex your paper doll is. Hair, different types of makeups, different eyes, different mouth, dress, scarves, necklaces, earrings, gloves. All of those are basically layers. So right now I only have 3 layers. In the final product I'll probably have at least 6 or 7, probably more. It depends on what template I end up using to create the actual application, because I'm not going to draw the actual paper doll. I'm not horrible at drawing, but I'm going to take a look at some take a look at some free resources that I can actually use. I'm not trying to sell this program. Literally, it's just for my daughter, so I don't have to worry too much. I'm going to keep to either public domain or things that I can legally use. Same thing for the music, same thing for the sound effects. I could design some of that myself, but I'm going to go with free to use resources, and I'll show you guys all where I get those resources as well. So first things first, I went into GIMP because, like I said, I could have used Photoshop here, but I'm trying to use low cost or no cost resources just to keep this simple for everyone, accessible for everyone. Not everybody wants to pay for a Creative Cloud license. So we take a look. I created a document in GIMP. I made a 40 by 40 pixel square, filled it in with colors. I did different layers, and then I just exported each layer out as a JPEG. The next bit is I came back into Godot, and then I went import 2D texture. I brought all the textures in. Next bit that I did is I came in and added a texture frame. And then I added texture buttons as children. So texture frame, texture button, texture button, texture button, texture frame, texture button, texture button, texture button, so on and so forth. Next is I went into each button and added first thing I actually did was I went here under my control and I added a script. I could have done this differently, but this is the way that I ended up doing it. Now that I rethink it, I probably would have done it a little bit differently. So after I created my script, I just kind of left it blank, came in here and went to each one of these buttons and did a connection. So I connected on press, and when I did the connection, it asked me just to create a connection. It named it all on its own, and it created the connection on its own. So if we go and take a look at my script, it then created a function on button 1 head pressed, because that's what I clicked. And then in here I added a bit of code. So get node, texture frame head, because we're on button 1 head, and set the texture to this, whatever the texture is that I have here. So that way, if I change what textures I've got assigned to the buttons, oh yeah, I forgot to show that. Let's go back a bit. So I went to my texture frame before I did any of that, and then after importing my textures, I said, hey, loaded a default texture. So you can see texture here, that's the one I chose. Then I went to this one and I said, hey, my normal texture, load the same one that was already there, and then this one, choose the next one, and then this one, choose the next one, kind of like this. Load textures, and then you see I went and got the one that I wanted, which was this one. Boom. Just so it's clear on what I'm selecting, I also chose a black texture on hover, so that when I float over, when my mouse floats over, I know exactly that yes, I am actually over that one button. See, it doesn't do it here, only does it on buttons. Cool. After doing that, I then went and did my connections. I then went back into the script and I added in this thing. So I told it, hey, I pressed a head button. Well, go to head and set its texture to whatever the texture is for this button. Instead of telling it, oh, set it to this texture, and explicitly stating what this texture is, I said, go and get the texture that's on the button. That way I'm guaranteed it's the exact same texture as the one I clicked. And if I ever change the texture to something else, like for example, if I go back here, I said if I go back here, oh, it's over here. There you go. So let's say I go back here and I decide, no, that's not the one I want. I'm going to load texture 11. Texture 11, right? And then I'm going to come here and texture 11. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Now, if I run this and I click here, you see it chooses the texture that I had selected. So I don't have to explicitly state it and then remember to go and change it in the code. That's the lovely thing with object-oriented programming languages and so on. So let's go back here, because that's kind of crazy. I think that was one. Open. There you go. Back to normal. So I did that for each button. Go back to the script. TF head, set texture, blah, 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 blah. There's a couple of different ways I could have done this. I set the script to the control. I could have set the script really to the buttons, I think. And that way I could have just had the one script and called the nodes below it by relation. So instead of saying TF head, I could have said get node parent of this one, and then instead of explicitly stating, hey, this one by name, go and get that. But this works, especially on a small project like this. It's not a big deal. I'm still learning the system. I've had it literally for, I think, 3 days. So there's quite a bit of learning still left to do. So yeah, I did that for everything. So head, 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 body, 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 legs, legs, legs. I tried to find a way to do it so I could only have one function that would then figure out by relation. I haven't been able to. All I've been able to do is explicitly state what nodes, and that's kind of annoying because I could, in any other programming languages, I could have probably reduced all of this to 3 lines of code, maybe 4, and I could have just kept adding and it would still be 4. So I'm going to look into it, see if I can't, bring that down. The other thing that I did that I should have done differently is you can actually go into your function ready here and Oh, I don't need this. You can actually go into your function ready here and do the connection manually. So when I went in here and I did a unpressed connect here, well, I could have done that explicitly in code instead, and it would have been cleaner. Because right now, there's no way for me to see that connection other than remembering that I've done it. So if something, like if I had buttons and I don't do that connection here, I'm not going to be able to visually see where that connection is missing. And then the button just won't do anything, and I'll be going, well, what the heck's going on? Okay. So I personally think the best way to do this would be to do a get node, and then let's say this dot connect pressed self, and then underscore on button one head pressed, like that. I think that would have been better, because then I could actually see that yes, I've declared them instead of using the manual interface. I don't know if that's actually the best way of doing it. If anybody knows, if anybody's actually watching these videos and knows, please leave a note in the comments. I'm learning the system, like I said, as I go along, and you're unfortunate enough to be watching me blunder around. So basically all this code does is say, hey, the parent here, give it whatever color I happen to have, because that's what it's supposed to do. And that's what's going to happen with the paper doll. The paper doll is going to have some invisible or some blank texture frames, and then the buttons, there's going to be an array of buttons hidden up in different frames and all that that I can hide and make reappear so that the interface isn't too cluttered. And then those invisible texture frames will get their actual texture from whatever button I press on. And that's it. That's literally the bulk of the system. I have it here. All I need to do is expand on it by adding extra body parts and hiding my options a bit better, so that, not hiding them, but organizing them in such a way that I can give my daughter choice in what she has without cluttering up the interface too much. Then I need to also add some background pictures and some music and some sound effects, maybe a splash screen, and that's it. Basically, I have the basis for my dress-up paper doll game that is going to be helping me learn the ins and outs of the Godot engine. I think I've covered enough for this one. The last time I did a video, it was half an hour long, so I'm going to try to keep these under 15 minutes. Once I slice and dice this up a little bit to remove the awkward pauses and all that, we should be under about 10 minutes, so stay tuned for the next episode where I'll be adding probably some music. I think next episode will be covering sound, actually. Yeah. So we'll see you in a few days. Bye-bye.